So this is a liver recipe, and I'm going to start this off by preparing my spices in bowls. As you can see in a lot of cooking shows, that's already done. Professionally, this is called mise en place. Everything in its place. And the reason I'm doing this on camera is because I'm doing things slightly differently, and I thought I'd share my thoughts and tools and how I do things. So, the recipe says, and I quote, hang on, what I'm going to need is salt, fennel seeds and sweet spices. And I forgot the salt, we'll come to that in a bit. But sweet spices are what we today think of as Christmas spices. Nutmeg, mace, cloves, ginger, galangal possibly. What else have I got here? Anise. I have star anise here. And I'm gonna grind some of these because I'm trying to get rid of ground spices. They don't keep the flavor as well. Grind them when you need them. And only use mortar and pestle when you really, really have to. I have one, as you can see. I don't use it. Because usually, for two reasons really. Usually I cook medieval on a banquet level. Kind of the smallest group I cook for is 30 people. You don't want to grind spices for 30 people in a mortar and pestle. Secondly, in general, I find it annoying. If we think for instance about cloves, you know cloves have a head and a stem. So when you see a clove, you can see it has two parts. It has the head and the stem, and they are vastly different in how you can process them, because the head is so crunchy you can simply crush it. The stem, if you try to grind that in mortar and pestle, you're going to be sitting there a long time. I've seen a recipe that explicitly states, because it's a soup, use the stems of cloves, because you boil them for a long time, they come out fine. But trying to grind this in mortar and pestle, not a hope. I just explained how a clove has a very sturdy part, the stem, and the nice and crunchy bit, the head, and that I had a recipe that actually says use the stems of cloves, because grinding the stem of a clove in mortar and pestle is no fun for nobody. So I explained that I have other tools here, and I'm mostly at home in the kitchen. I use this. Yeah. It's from a Swedish company. It's cast iron.
Okay, so that's quite a hefty yoke. Oh, and you put the stuff in there and then twist?
Yeah. As I'll demonstrate in a moment. It has become my go-to tool, really.
That's actually a lot handier than a mortar and pestle.
It really is. Mortar and pestle is nice and historic, but I'm not trying to reenact the suffering of the cooks. So I'm going to grind myself a few cloves. And as you can hear, we're done.
Huh? Oh, that smells wonderful. That really does give you the full hit of flavour.
And I explained that I'm trying to move away from pre-ground spices. Yeah. Because they lose so much body and so much flavour. Yeah. Which we will see in a moment. I've even done with cinnamon. Things get a bit stuck in here. So, this is our, cloves. The other thing I want to pre-grind is, where is my mace? There's my mace.
Oh, right.
I've never ground mace in this. Let's see how that works out.
Isn't mace one that you have to be careful with?
Yes, but we have a mutual friend who tried to poison people with that. But you don't have to be that careful.
Okay.
Nutmeg and mace are more than anything intoxicants.
Right.
If that stuff gets poisonous and it's still fresh, you can't eat it. It's so intense.
Okay, right.
So that kind of regulates itself.
So in very large amounts, it does for your liver, does it?
I don't actually know, but yes, liver is probably is likely really. Look at the color.
Oh, well. Yeah, that's not something you'd want to put too much of.
No, that's the thing.
I can appreciate why you'd want it, but
Yeah.
you wouldn't want a lot of it.
No. So, and actually...
it's quite like an astringent.
Yeah. So, we've done the mace. That needed a bit of preservation to come out of the grinder. Yes, I know what I'm missing. Gonna do one blade of star anise.
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna make two versions of this recipe as written and a bit of a riff on it, part of which was accidental in the originally. I have not seen star anise much in recipes. Anise, yes, but I don't have anise. And since Martino says sweet spices and doesn't specify more. Oh yeah, Martino, the author of this recipe is Maestro Martino da Como, 15th century Italian celebrity cook.
So what's the difference between anise and star anise?
I'm not entirely sure.
Okay.
But I can give you a smell in a moment. And boy, I love this tool. On balance, I don't like anise. I prefer the woodier, I think, flavor of star anise. I am one of those who don't like the whole licorice family.
Oh, I don't know. I can dig some licorice.
Yeah, no.
I love aniseed balls and cough candy and all that kind of flavour.
No. The funny thing is one of the very noticeable spices in here is actually fennel seed. That's specified.
Yeah.
And I'm actually going to do something else because I don't want it ground. Actually, I'm simply going to I'm going to crush it very mildly. You might have been wondering what this is, why I have a coffee grinder here.
Is it because we're having coffee later on?
No, it is actually, especially for slightly bigger batches, the ultimate spice grinder.
Okay.
This machine has never seen coffee.
Oh right, okay, so you've only used it for spices.
I've only used it for spices, yes. And this one has a little wheel here where I can adjust the fineness.
Oh, nice.
It's not very good. I have to hold the wheel, otherwise it gets coarser and coarser and coarser.
Yeah.
Because the wheel tightens against the direction of the turning, so you keep opening it. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make a plug here. If you're gonna buy yourself one of those, and if you have the money, get one with a Peugeot grinder. Peugeot, as in the car factory.
All right, okay.
They make the world's best grinders.
There's so many jokes. There's so many jokes. Okay, so they make the best grinders.
Yes.
Good to know.
But you're looking at between 80 and 100 euro for one then.
Okay.
Worth it though. So I'm trying to be reasonably coarse here. Let's see how this is this way to find. Because I fundamentally just want them to give it a gentle crush.
Okay.
Still. Yeah, that's what I hit. And this, of course, is also, and you see, there's still some of them are still quite intact, but get the smell. Yeah. It is still the aniseed family, but I do love me fennel seed.
As I say, I'm down with all of those. So.
Yeah, I always knew you were a bit weird. Take this out of the way. This here. So, and now talking about the riff. This I'm going to use for my riff version. It's cumin. And that was accidental, but it worked out a treat. I need to explain how I cook a banquet. in the SCA where usually you cook the whole weekend. People arrive on Friday and leave Sunday morning to lunchtime, so there are between 5 and 6 meals to be cooked. And I stay out of breakfast because I'm not gonna cook Friday night till Saturday morning and then serve breakfast at 7. Somebody else usually volunteers for that. But this event where I made this first, I remember I had arrived, I think, at 6. Had quickly put together traveler's fare, what we call the Friday dinner, because people arrive and something needs to be there. And then cooked till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, because you do your first half of all the dishes that can then wait overnight. And then breakfast is done, 10 o'clock you go back into the kitchen and you start cooking again and throw out lunch somewhere on the side. And at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, when it got really busy, I sat down and made the spice mix for this.
Yeah.
And reached for the fennel, who, like in this case, was in a very similar jar to the cumin, which was sitting around there. Looks kind of similar, and missed.
Ah.
By the time I had realized that, the cumin was already in the livers.
Okay.
And I wasn't going to want to wash them off and start again.
Okay.
So I hereby declare the sweet spice and went on. Turns out it works a treat.
Very good. So when you're doing events for the SEA, the timing is quite boom, there's not a lot of.
It depends
you
a
have
little.
To stick to your schedule.
You have to make yourself at least a rough schedule and stick to it, because otherwise, I've done that. I've made that mistake. First dishes are done. Oh, I need to do a second course, and nothing is done. So yes, that was a rather hard learning curve for me. So I'm gonna again crush this cumin just a little. And I'll only put it into the rift version. Putting the drawer in might help. 2 more to go. Nutmeg. And yes, there are recipes in period that use nutmeg and mace.
Oh wow.
I
would have always thought it was either or.
Usually yes. Oh, for those who don't know, mace is the husk of the nutmeg. And we're going to go all modern on this.
When does nutmeg come into recipes then?
That, as far as I'm aware, all of this arrives with the Crusades and the Arabic recipes.
Oh right.
In episode 2, Pat and I talked about that, and it is, if you look at the Roman cuisine, Apicius, that's a completely different cuisine with completely different flavors. I mean, they use the equivalent of Thai fish sauce in just about anything.
Yeah.
And then you have the cookbook we have in between is Antimus, who is King Theodoric's cook.
Yeah.
Doesn't have a lot of recipes, and you can see the tradition in there from Apicius, the Roman cookbook.
Yeah.
There's another one that recently got discovered that I haven't even looked at yet. And then I've cooked from a cookbook, Sensovi, which is a Catalan cookbook that's reasonably early, 12th century, I believe.
Okay. Yeah.
And that has a few recipes that have no spices whatsoever.
Yeah.
And then you see the Arabic influence coming in with the Crusades.
Yeah. I just thought of nutmeg as belonging to the sort of 16th, 17th century rather than... Isn't it one of the Dutch islands that is the former Dutch colonies that's a major producer?
I think so, yes. I mean, that the Dutch owned quite a lot of what's called the Spice Islands.
But nutmeg comes in before the discovery of those islands.
Yes, so good. That's one of the things one needs to be aware of when reading period recipes. Very few of them give actual quantities. And if we compare that with modern ingredients, our spices are fresher because I didn't spend 2 weeks in a burlap sack on the Silk Road.
Yeah.
Our herbs are not as strong.
All right.
Because our herbs, mostly, if you use fresh herbs, mostly they're hydroponically grown. And if you compare hydroponically grown herb to something from the garden, I mean, if you take my knife, turn around and get a little sprig of rosemary and simply sniff on that.
Yeah. Where is the rosemary?
Little shrub between the car and the bin.
Oh, right. That is lovely.
Isn't it? And I mean, compared to store-bought rosemary, it's so much more intense.
Well, here's the thing. I don't use store-bought rosemary because I've got a large rosemary bush in my garden.
Yeah.
I just love rosemary, which is the only reason I picked this bit of yours. Yours is actually a little bit different to mine.
Yeah, they're different subspecies, very clearly, and some of them are more lavender-like and some are a bit different.
This bit is a bit more lavender-like than the one I've got, but it's one of the reasons why I couldn't quite see it. It's because it's a sprawling rosemary, like a creeper.
Yeah, fundamentally, yes. The problem here is that they put topsoil on the concrete base plate of an old building.
All right.
So the rosemary has about yay much depth, and that's why it doesn't grow very high.
I've seen the variety before that goes out rather than up.
Yeah.
Whereas the variety I have in my garden is an up rather than out.
Yes. So the other thing I'm going to do is cinnamon.
Yeah.
And before I threw my ground cinnamon out, I actually tried this, and it works very nicely. Because you can simply cut your cinnamon a bit, even if it gets a bit lively. And then grind it. For this, we're going to tighten this.
Okay.
Cinnamon we want a bit finer.
And you couldn't do the cinnamon in
I
this?
actually haven't tried it. I just thought it was a bit much. Let's see.
Well, why don't I do that while you do the other one?
Yeah.
And we'll see who gets the finer grade cinnamon. Yeah, this is going to be a bit... Oh, no.
Yeah.
Takes a bit of...
Possibly that wasn't too clever when I did here. Yeah, I think it's going to have to be yours actually. When I tried this worked in here, but now it's not.
No, this has worked quite well. I'm getting some strandy bits. It's quite satisfying doing this.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
And, I mean, if you're standing at the cooker in the kitchen, it's so fast and easy.
It's a lot more difficult with this much in there. I would do it one bit per thing. Might be easier because I'm...
Yes.
My chance it gets going. It's too bad. Oh, how's that, boss?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, that's lovely. I'll give you the rest.
Bits off the side, I think, of the...
Yeah.
More. So why don't you carry on while I do this? Small bit more. Oh, God. And I think this is the consistency he's looking for. Right, so we're on to what looks like a liver. Is it a liver?
It is a liver. It's a lamb's liver.
Okay, and why, first off, why are we eating liver?
Well, I like liver. And in history, and I need to quickly explain the SCA period, which is funnily between 600 and 1600, although we ditched the start date, but it's kind of the 1,000 years of European Middle Ages.
Yeah.
What one mustn't forget is that nobody was rich as a middle class person these days.
Right.
I mean, yes, a king could outfit an army, but food was scarce and you ate everything.
Okay.
I mean, in the 19th centuries, the butchers would say they use every part of the pig apart from the oink.
Yeah.
That's the same ethos.
Yeah.
You just didn't go, oh, this is yucky, I don't eat that. No.
It was food, you ate it.
Exactly. So, what we want is kind of decent bite-sized pieces of this.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make one horizontal cut. Come on. May I just point out how nice and light this is.
Sorry, can I ask you while you're cutting that up, why you're using lamb's liver as opposed to any other?
The recipe says pretty much any liver.
Right.
Usually I use chicken liver for this,
Yeah.
but there was none to be had.
Okay.
So I've just wiped down a bit because this liver is very nice and fresh and bleeds rather a lot. And never mind that this is a cloth towel, 95 degrees, it gets clean. Now, since Martino has a medieval kitchen and can't really oven roast or do similar things, he spit roasts. And if you stick a liver on the spit, it gets dry.
Okay.
He wraps it in cold fat.
Okay. What exactly is that?
That is outer lining of the stomach, I believe.
Okay. And are you going to open it up so we can... Okay. Ah.
I've added salt. I'm going to throw in a little bit of ginger.
The last thing you added was...
Salt.
Salt? No, before the salt was the nutmeg.
Yes.
Okay.
So, ginger, and these might get very intense. Let's see how this pans out. But I have ideas. So, I finished seasoning this. We had problems with technology, so I've added salt and ginger as well. I'm also going to make a salad. Owen, who's also on our team, did this for my 50th.
Yeah.
I'm going to start off by making citrus fillets, which is interesting, something that Pat had never heard of. It may be a continental cooking skill. I don't know. So we peel our citrus fruit like a chef. And now we go in between the two white bits.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
And we assemble our salad. This is a very light Portuguese olive oil. And just for the contrast in flavor, an absolute dash of red wine vinegar. We have made our accompaniments, and we're now trying to wrap our liver in pork caul, which I've never done, or in beef caul in this case, which I've never done before, because usually I do this in the kitchen, not outdoors with open fire. So I usually deep fry.
Okay.
Because it's also contact glass, it's surrounded in fat. It's not the same, but I thought it was the closest I could come to simulating.
Okay.
So let's see.
And the spoony one is the original?
No, that's the riff.
Okay.
One riff. You know who I don't want to be? The pro chef who gets to make these pretty enough to serve. Because this looks okay, this looks rustic, this is for a field kitchen, this is fine. If you want to serve this in the restaurant, it needs to be much prettier. And no idea how I would do this. The one thing I know is, this is beef caul, which is, as you can see, pretty rough and pretty sturdy. You would need a final call. The recipe actually recommends kid, which I will try to get at some point. There is a goat farmer in this country, I need to talk to them. But I've tried to contact them, and with the pandemic they haven't come back to me. And I think there's also at some point possibly a conversation with Pat how you would do this. Because at the moment, nice as it is, you couldn't serve it. We have made our salad and our sauce. The chimney is well lit. And I'm now going to pour this onto this little box, which is made to work with skewers. Skewers are flat.
Yeah.
So when you make kind of kebab kind of thing,
Yeah.
use one skewer and you can turn that way. So, looks like this, and they go on.
So will all of the coal sort of melt away, burn away as you cook?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay. So we'll find that out.
I think that's the idea, but...
And roughly, how long are we going to cook these for, do you think?
In a 180 degree deep fryer, they are something like 60 seconds.
Okay, so we're going about 5 minutes.
Somewhere along those lines. I mean, I'm gonna take them off in a bit and do a bounce check.
So, these are continuing to cook and look nearly done, actually.
They are, aren't they?
And I'm surprised that the twine doesn't seem to be burning.
No, it's butcher's twine. It's pretty good for this kind of thing.
Yeah. Which is, of course, why you wanted butcher's twine rather than regular.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is, with regular, you never know whether you get polyester.
Okay.
So let's have a quick look here. Yes, if anything, they're overdone. Nah, not quite yet. A bit raw on the inside.
Okay. So we need a bit more. So they're basically edible, but not where you'd want them to be.
No, they are lovely as they are, but yeah, I'd want them a bit more cooked. But yes, fresh liver is to die for. I mean, this liver is clearly from today.
So just a couple more minutes each side.
Something like that. I'd say minute and change either side. Mark, you try this?
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm gonna try and present this nicely. Actually, looking at it cooked, this looks decent, I think.
This is that's perfect.
Because when you were away, I said about that I wouldn't want to be the pro chef who serves this to make it look nice.
I'm okay without saying.
We've cooked the second round. We ran out of camera storage when we ate the first one. So, by memory, I would have thought these are the riffed ones and these are the as written, but when we tasted them, they did taste of cumin, so maybe I got confused. And I'm gonna plate this up. Mart doesn't want salad because he doesn't like red food.
I'll take that one.
Okay, let's... So guys, that's it. That's Martino's liver, which in a banquet I would serve as an intermediate dish, and in a period banquet, in a modern banquet, I would serve this as a starter or a second starter. If you like this, if you enjoyed this, hit like. If you want to see more of this, hit subscribe and ring the bell. Thanks for watching.